Welcome. My name is Kelly Jessup, and I'm the Assistant Director for Digital Learning here at Yale School of Management, Executive Education. Hope you're doing well. If you're here in the Northeast area, we're certainly having lovely weather. And we appreciate you taking the time to join us for our webinar today. This is the Introduction to Yale's CIMA Prep course, Investment Management Theory and Practice. This is our 7th year offering this program, and in that time, we've worked with over 3,000 candidates. In the webinar today, we really encourage you to listen and engage. Please don't hesitate to ask questions. This is your time. Our program director, Jim Dobbs, is very knowledgeable, and this is a really great opportunity to pick his brain. So to ask questions, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. You can submit your question to everyone or just to me, but I suggest you send it to everyone as there may be similar questions in mind. And if you have any technical issues, you can send those directly to me via chat and we'll try and get those resolved. So now I'd like to introduce our program director. Jim Dobbs is CIMA certified. He's also CFP and CPWA certified. He was a financial advisor for 25 years and ran his own RIA practice before retiring to work full-time in his financial education company. Jim has worked with different certifying bodies and universities for the last 20 years, helping build and manage financial certification programs. More importantly, though, Jim has had extensive experience with the Investments and Wealth Institute. He personally helped create the CPWA certification and has served IWI in many roles, including as chair of IWI's Technical Advisory Board. You'll see he's passionate about what he does. Jim is committed to success, and he measures his success based on yours. Please welcome Jim Dobbs.
Well, thank you very much, Kelly. Can you see and hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Yay. All right, well, welcome everybody. As Kelly said, this is your time. At this point in my life, I don't need to hear myself talk, but I do want to get a lot of good information out to you guys so you can consider the certification and our program if you choose to go towards a certification. I'm going to do a little bit of both. I'm going to talk about the certification up front in case some of you are still considering other certifications, trying to determine if CIMA is right for you, at least right for you right now in your career. And then we'll spend the rest of the time talking about the Yale program and what you can expect as you move through the education process into the test prep material, getting ready for your certification exam. Take about an hour, depends on the questions you have. No silly questions, everything's fair game. So just go ahead and, as Kelly mentioned, shoot those on in. She'll stop me periodically and I'll stop a few times too. And then if we have some minutes at the end, we can do kind of a free-for-all Q&A as well. First point of distinction, at Yale, we deliver the education component. There's a required education component when you're moving towards your CIMA certification. Unlike some of the other certifications out there, there's a separate, distinct education piece. Okay, so we offer that at Yale, and we offer test prep. We're the only ones that include like a comprehensive one place to go. You got the education and your test prep to get ready for your certification exam. If you're like most of our candidates, you will not need anything else. No supplemental study materials or textbooks or anything like that. Everything you need to be successful in the course and on your exam is in this program. So I'll call it a program, and it's got 2 parts: education course, test prep. Okay, so IWI, Investments and Wealth Institute, they are your certifying body. We're completely separate, but we do try to work with them just to know the rules and any changes and, you know, all the particulars that you all have to obey to get your certification and keep your certification. And I'm a CIMA designee, as I think Kelly mentioned as well. So go to their website, lots of great information there if you're not familiar with IWI, as they will be your certifying body. Some more good information at their website. You won't find as much of this on ours, a little bit, but most of it's there, including demographics. So look, if you're kind of curious as to who your candidate mates would be, go into their demographic information. They've got a couple of white papers as well that kind of scour the certification landscape and kind of say, well, these are CFPs, these are CIMA designees, these are CPWAs, et cetera. And then also, if you're looking to build support to take to your people at the firm for either reimbursement or even approval, that they should have some good third-party information on their website. You can see just a little bit of this at the upper right-hand part of your screen. We will send you these slides. They do have hot links on them. It'll take a few days. We'll send you a replay of the recording as well. The process is pretty easy, so we don't need to spend much time on this, but it is unique compared to some others. So you'll submit an application for candidacy, and you'll do that through IWI. Again, IWI being your certifying body. They'll do a background check your application to make sure it's complete and that it matches up with your U4, especially if you have any disciplinary marks in your history. Once you get approved, they'll say, hey, Jim is passed our check. He is now a CIMA candidate, and he has chosen Yale, which you would do, by the way, on your application for candidacy. And it takes them about a few days to a week to get their process done. It's same thing with us. It's at least a few days. It's up to about a week. So the whole thing will take about 2 weeks. So this is not one of those quick, okay, I sign up and I'm online tonight at 8 o'clock and I'm ready to go. This is a full process. So keep that in mind. Once we get your name, and then again, a few days to a week, because there's a process for that at Yale, you'll get up and running in our platform. You'll have 1 year of access. I'll talk about that access in a minute. You can get an extension. I'll talk about that. You'll spend about 40 hours in our education course, passing the course, and then all the rest of the time you'll spend just getting ready for the certification exam. Take and pass the certification exam. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. And then you'll get some paperwork. They'll make you pass another background check, IWI being they, and then you'll pay your initial certification fee and you'll be certified. So that's the process. Pretty simple, straightforward. I did want to mention the scholarships. Some of you may have heard about this. We don't have any discount scholarships, anything like that at Yale for these programs. That being said, IWI still has their scholarships, and you can see the eligibility criteria on the left-hand side of the screen. So just peruse those real fast. And the big thing that may have already jumped out at you is right there in front of you, $1,000 to $5,000. So if you get any of these, it's probably going to be a minimum of $1,000 scholarship. So look, if it's me, it's worth 10 or 15 minutes of my time to fill out a scholarship form if I might get $1,000 to $5,000 off. So I would do it. The only other caveat to that is you don't have to, but you would want to fill out your scholarship application before you apply for candidacy. The reason I say that is when you get into your candidacy application and they ask for payment, you're going to want to be able to put your scholarship code in there to get the discount. So ideally, you want to do the scholarship application first and then your CIMA candidacy application after you get the results. All right, I did want to draw a parallel, well, a little bit of a parallel, but show some differences between CIMA and CFA in particular. And then I've also got CFP and CPWA up there as well. I'll start with CFP just because it's the most well-known for most people in America. Now, not 25 years ago when I got it, hardly anybody knew what it was. That being said, that's financial planning, and it's really financial services. It's like anything and everything financial planning and services. So it's not a super deep dive in most of the programs, and the test is not, but it covers a broad range of content. I'm a big fan. I'm a CFP designee myself, but that's very different than what we're talking about here with CIMA or CPWA, our sister program. That's the other financial certification that we offer at Yale School of Management Executive Education. CPWA is really like, okay, you're like a CFP or CHFC or at least a financial planner with experience, but now you need to go deeper in the more technical areas, think tax, estate planning, intergenerational wealth transfer, that kind of thing. And that's what CPWA is all about. But you're here today for CIMA, Certified Investment Management Analyst. And that is different from CFA in that CFA is the 800-pound gorilla for sure. But as you can see here, it takes most people 4 years to get it. The majority of CFA charter holders failed one of those 3 exams at least once. Under 10% of people who start finish. And that's not a knock or a negative comment by any means on CFA. In fact, if any of you aspire to be a securities analyst, moving your way up the chain towards portfolio manager, as in institutional portfolio manager. You don't want to just work at Merrill Lynch. You want to manage one of those mutual funds or ETFs that manages $1 billion. Okay, if that's who you are and what you aspire to, you need to go towards CFA. CIMA won't hurt you, of course, but eventually you're going to need to have those skills of a CFA charter holder anyway. So my recommendation would be probably need to move in that direction now. But for the rest of us mere mortals, and that's 98% of us, maybe 99% of us, client-facing advisors, financial planners, financial advisors, investment consultants, wholesalers, really anybody that's not in the securities analyst portfolio management bucket, if you will, that's selling or servicing investment products or services. And again, that's most of us. And that was me for 27 years, 20 of years of which I managed my own RIA. CIMA is really more built for the rest of us. It's not as deep a dive as CFA, so it doesn't take as long, as you can see, about 6 months. A lot of our candidates get done in about 4 to 5 months if they hit the ground running right away once they sign up. But 6 months is what you should shoot for. Shouldn't take anybody a year. We'll come back to that in a minute. So ours is not, this curriculum at CIMA is not as deep as CFA, but it's deeper than what you probably did in your CFP program, unless you did like a master's with 3 courses in investments. And it's not as quantitative as CFA. There is plenty of math, of course, but it's not going to be nearly the level of CFA. So hopefully that gives you an idea. Happy to field questions here just on the surface in the rest of our webinar, or you could reach out to me. You'll see my contact information a few times. I'm happy to have a short phone call or trade some emails with you regarding your specifics if you're just not quite sure. Because to me, being in the business 30-something years now, with these 4, for example, it ought to be pretty clear for most of you at a certain point in time in your career which of these you would be going for and would not be going for. This shouldn't be too complicated. All right, the core curriculum, and I'll give you some more details in the next few pages. Couple thoughts. One, let me just walk through it real fast. We're going to start with kind of like a college finance refresher, statistics, time value of money, a little bit of finance, economics, and then we're going to throw in some global market history as well. Then bucket number 2 or domain number 2, we're going to kind of do what you would naturally think of in terms of an investment certification, all the different kind of vehicles and structures out there on investments, stocks, bonds, or equities, fixed income, alts, a little bit on options and derivatives, not a lot, and then real assets and hedge funds. So that's kind of going to be the more mainstream. Domain 3 is the biggest section, clearly, portfolio theory and behavioral finance. And I love, one of the things I love about the curriculum, the way they've got it structured now, I've been around for a long time, so I've seen this change over time. But I like the fact that they've got both of these together, because I think they're sending us a signal as practitioners we already know, which is portfolio theory is absolutely critical. It's foundational. It clearly does not always work all the time. There are flaws and holes in it. And with all of that said, it's just as important that we manage our own emotions and our behavioral biases and try to help our clients do the same. Because if we can't do that part of the equation, probably none of the rest of this is going to matter anyway. Our clients are not going to be happy with us at some point because we didn't manage the relationship well, and they're going to leave and we're not going to be so successful. So they kind of mix all those together, which I think is pretty cool. I think it's a good way to do it from an application standpoint. Then we'll get back into some more math, some more detailed, nuanced math in domain 4, risk and return, and we'll wrap it up with not a lot of new material in domain 5, but just bringing it all together. Most of that domain is application based, as you can see from client discovery, investment policy statements, construction, manager search and selection, those kinds of things. Hey, look, if you don't have the color-coded detailed topic list, this 5-pager with exam weights, just shoot me an email. I'll be happy to send it to you. You can get it off their website. You can get it off of our website. It may be just easier for you to shoot me an email. So feel free to go ahead and do that, and I'll get you this. The caveat or the note that I mentioned earlier was we're in that fourth year, give or take. All these certifications, well, the legitimate ones anyway, they do a job task analysis and industry survey, and they update their topics and their exam every 3 to 5 years. And we're in that year. It's 2024. Now, I've done this for a long time with CIMA, taught CFP for a long time, and CPWA and a couple others. And I can tell you this, having spent a couple hours with IWI senior staff and our team at Yale for this program, I don't think there's a lot of changes here. The new outline looks a little different than this. All they really did was move some things around and change the order, change some of the wording and some of the line items. But as we have gotten ready to release our supplement, if you will, to help people get ready for the exam beginning August 1st, that's when the official change takes place. There's probably not going to be any more than a dozen summary slides, like 12. And maybe 12 or 15 practice questions to tackle new content. So all that to say, it's going to look a little different, but there's not much different in terms of you preparing for the exam. So don't let that trip you up. What we're telling all of our candidates is just plow forward, follow our program, follow the existing topic list. Now, if you get to like June, July, and you're like, I know I'm going to be testing in August at least, or maybe even later. Okay, at that point, then you would study the supplemental material that we think could be new for you come August. Other than that, nope, just move straight ahead. Not going to be a significant thing this time around. Okay, speaking of significant things, for many of you, not a problem, but for some of you, maybe a little concerning, is the level of math. Here is the current sample formula sheet for the exam. It does not change even in August. So again, just one more feature or evidence that this exam shouldn't change very much. You will have access to this during your exam. You'll be using it as you work through especially our test prep. You don't have to memorize these. Even the titles next to the metric will be on your exam, unlike some other exams where you see the formula and that's all you get. You actually get the title, which is pretty nice of them. That being said, you do need to know how to use each of these, when to use each of these, and what the results might mean. So if you don't have a copy of this, just like the topic list, again, send me an email. I'll get you the formula sheet, and you're going to use the formula sheet and do practice examples, etc., on all of these in our test prep. Okay. I think it's always important. Well, actually, let me just stop there real fast, Kelly, and see if we've got any early questions before I get into our program goals and objectives, but I'll go ahead and share them with you while Kelly and I are bantering back and forth.
Yes, we do have a question. So this is related to the timing of taking your exam related to where you are in your work experience. So the question is, can I take the exam during my first or second year of work and then have the certification activate once I hit the 3-year requirement?
Great question. Thank you for asking. And because some certifications are not like this, it varies across the board. Yes, you can. And so, yeah, that's what you would do. If you're in your first or second year and you feel ambitious enough to tackle this, like, okay, this doesn't look too crazy, even though I'm new to the business, maybe all you have is your 7 and your 63 or something like that. We'll talk about exams in a little bit. Then, yeah, you go ahead and start. You go through the education, you pass your cert exam. And then once you hit, and then the only thing left you would have is hitting that 3-year mark. Once you hit that 3-year mark, then they would send you your paperwork, your licensing paperwork, and you would be certified. So yeah, great question.
Okay, and we do have a question about study time, but I know you're going to get into that, so we might just hold that for now.
Yep, good. So for the rest of you, think of how much study time, what does that look like, whatever. We're going to hit that, but start thinking about it now. That way, if I don't cover something like regarding your specific question, you can ask. Okay, so I think it's important anytime you're looking at spending this much time. Now, this is not an inexpensive certification to get, but it's not like really crazy expensive or anything, and it's not priced like a academic degree course working towards a degree. It's not for academic credit, so it's priced less. But I would argue the biggest cost to you will be your time, the 100 to 200 hours it's probably going to take most of you. We'll talk about that, as Kelly kind of teased it just a minute ago. And your opportunity costs, like what could you have spent your time doing over those 100 and 200 hours? So I think those are your biggest costs. I think you want to know what your education provider is trying to help you with. And as you've probably read all three of these, I don't need to spend much time, but we do want to offer a program that between the education course and the test prep covers all of those line items. And there's about 500 of them if you actually count up to each subtopic in that 5-page PDF I just showed you. So we've got coverage on all of that. Now, we don't cover all of it in both sections, the education course and the test prep. And when we do cover both, we don't cover it at the same level of depth because the education is, let's create a core fundamental understanding, traditional lecture, examples, that kind of thing. And then you're going to take some tests, as I'll show you. And then once you get into test prep, once you get to test prep, it's all about the exam. It's like, okay, it's not like the learning is over, but we're going to shift our focus to how might they test you in those areas. So we got the coverage. The middle one is the hardest one to measure, but I think it's arguably the most important one, having done this for about 20 years. You know, how much of this are you able to take back in your practice, your career, your job tasks and responsibilities? If we can't create a program to where you can take this back into practice right away, then honestly, I don't think it's worth doing. So this is the biggest one for me. And when I talk to y'all at conferences and live events and whatever after, that's the one I'm looking for. Like, how much did this really help you in your practice? That's the most important to me. And then the bottom one, which some of you are already thinking about, and the longer you're with us and as your time winds down and you're getting ready for the exam, it's all going to be about the test and you're going to be super focused on that. And I get it because I was in your chair, once upon a time ago. So I know how that goes. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to start education foundational with an idea that this should be practical as well. But as you get closer and closer to your exam, it's just all about the nuts and bolts of the test. Okay, speaking of nuts and bolts, so a couple of things here. It's about $6,000, a little bit less. That does include your IWI fees. That's your application, your background check, candidacy, and testing fees. Really, it's one test. We'll talk about that in a minute. You get one attempt. Well, I'll just mention it now since I'm on it. I think right now they're charging you like $225 per additional attempt. Now, most of our candidates pass on the first try, but there are people that don't. So $225 for each additional test if you fail the certification exam. But that includes all the Yale material, the platform, the education course, and all of our test prep. And like I mentioned, the vast majority of our candidates don't need anything else. Just focus on what we give you, follow our plan, and you should be fine. All right, so it's meant to be really flexible per that middle bullet point. You just start when you want to. And I think that's really important because you have a year. As you've already seen, I think it shouldn't take you more than about 6 months at about 10 hours a week. So you can start doing some math. And I'll get into those numbers in just a second even more. But you don't want to start this, I don't think, if you're like, oh, when I look out over, here we are in March, April, May are going to be really tough. I don't think I can probably even get to this till June in any real way. We'll start in June. Just go ahead and save those 2 months. I mean, look, I'd love to get you in the program, but the timing's important. So I think you want to start when you've got a month where you're like, okay, well, this looks like a really good month to start, or what's more practical, having been in business for your business for so long. Next month doesn't look any worse. Doesn't look any worse than any of the other months. So I'll go ahead and take the plunge then. So yeah, consider your timing. And again, you've got access to our material for 365 days. You can spend a couple grand more for another year, $2,250, I think it is. But you should never even need to do that. One, you should finish well within the year in terms of all the way to certification. But more importantly, for those of you who don't, you really just need to pass the course, which are these online tests. They're not proctored, they're just in the platform. You got to pass 11 of them. Once you do that, everything is downloadable. So you just put everything on your hard drive if your time runs out and study for the cert exam on your own time off your own hard drive. So that's the workaround there. But I know that some of you have generous education budgets and an extra couple grand for the next year. No big deal. But for those of you who are like me, independent, or we're on a tight budget, yeah, you should not have to do that. Okay, so speaking of flexibility and convenience, everything on demand, download, copy, save, and print everything. We're going to keep it open like that, and we have. I think Kelly mentioned we're like in our 7th year or something. Until I start seeing all of our content like regularly on Quizlet and all those websites, and till we know that people are just passing all of our material, all of our copyrighted Yale material around, we're going to let you keep doing that. You just can't share it with anybody. You bought it. It's for you. You're the candidate. You're the participant. One thing that's really important in an online program is being able to study whenever and wherever you want, and really taking those tests that I mentioned, the 11 tests at the course level. That's the only thing you really actually have to be online to do, because again, you could download everything. It's also asynchronous. So unlike other programs, not just in CIMA land, but in other certifications, you're going to move fast or slow. That was really important when I built this, because I know some of you, and now that we've had over 3,000 people, it's clearly the case. Some of you are going to move fast. 14 days is the record. I'm not tempting any of you to go for the record, but log in, day 1 Yale, day 14, take and pass the certification exam. So you can get it done really, really fast. That's an exceptional candidate, of course. Or you can take your whole year if you want to. The point is, I didn't want the people moving fast to freak out the people that are moving at a slower pace. And I didn't want the people moving at a slower pace to really get on the nerves of the fast trackers. So that's not going to be an issue here. You're going to move through, even though we've got guardrails, best practices, time recommendations, whether you want to move fast, intermediate, or slow, all of that. We've given you all of that based on our experience, but you're going to choose how fast or slow you want to go. All right, speaking of the study time expectations, 100 to 200 hours, as I mentioned earlier, but it's not uncommon for somebody to finish the whole thing, not just the education course, which we estimate about 40 hours to get through all the videos at the course level, take and pass those 11 tests, 40 hours-ish. You certainly get it done in 25 or 30 if you're moving pretty quickly. But then you can see then most of your time is going to be studying for the certification exam. So, you go 40 hours for the course and another 100, that's 140. That's very normal, according to the feedback we've gotten from thousands of candidates over the years. Occasionally, we'll get somebody who's new to the business, like the participant we talked with earlier, that maybe just doesn't have the background yet. They've never studied the CAPM or modern portfolio theory or all these behavioral biases before. So it's just going to take them longer because they haven't seen a lot of this. Some people are just slower. They want to be more methodical. They want to soak it all up because, like, when's the next time you're going to be doing a Yale program, right? And then maybe some of you have learning challenges or disabilities. That's a common thing these days. So that could slow you up. But again, it doesn't matter. 6 months should still be your target. And 100 to 200 hours is where most of you are probably going to fall in terms of when you look back, how much time did you spend? It matters on all the things I just mentioned and that you see there on the screen. I think the most important thing, though, is, again, asynchronous. Look, you move through as fast as you want. You move through as slow as you want. That being said, when it comes to test prep, you will want to follow our guidance. We've been doing this for a long time. We've got nice pass rates. We've got really great customer satisfaction scores, and an NPS, I think, is around 71, 72 right now. So Google that if you don't know Net Promoter Score. So you want to follow our guideline. We've been doing this a long time. We can help you avoid shortcuts that are going to hurt you, help you study more, not only effectively, but efficiently, so you don't waste a lot of time. All right, I will stop here as you look at the course kind of layout, or at least the resources we have in the course. Kelly, do we have any other questions?
So we do have another question about the work experience requirement. Do finance internships during college count toward financial work experience time?
Yeah, good question. I'll skip right to the chase. You'll want to reach out probably to Ashley Vargas over at IWI. Her name again, Ashley Vargas, and her email is VARGAS at i-w.org. So, or you could just Google Ashley Vargas. Anyway, here's the deal. If it's something like that, you're probably going to have to submit it and have them review it to at least give you a preliminary idea. What I can tell you is this: if it's finance related, probably doesn't have to be investments. So that's good. If it's an internship, if you were supervised and that can be quantified, that's probably one of, if not the key, they're going to look at. So if you can have somebody sign off to say, yes, Jim did so many hours in this window, then that's probably going to work, but you'll want to confirm that with them. Good question.
And not to tip your hand again, but we do have a question about calculators and if there's a specific one that's okay. So
yeah, good
hold
question.
on that if you'd like.
Yeah, well, we're coming up on that one, so we'll get there. Thank you for that.
All right.
Okay, so moving on. So you've seen here, we have several texts that we use. We don't send out books or papers or anything like that. This is all online. But as I told you before, you can print whatever you want. Of the textbooks we use, this is the most technical one. It's one I did for Wiley years ago. You can buy it off Amazon for probably $100, $125 if you're not lucky. I'm not promoting that. I don't even get any royalties for that. That being said, I think what's more likely is not only in my text there, but in the other texts we use, you're not going to print out the whole book. You're just going to print out little sections of it like, oh, that's really interesting, or I want to read that maybe, at night to put yourself to sleep or something. I'm okay with that. And so you'll just print out 10 or 20 pages or something. So that's it. Most people just, read it on their laptop or their iPad these days anyway. So that's what that looks like. We don't key off of those textbooks like in the old days. Now, most of you are probably not old like me, but back in the old days in college, we'd read from texts and come and discuss those in class and take quizzes and all that stuff. Well, we don't do that. These textbooks, and it's over 2,000 pages of reading. My text there alone is 1,100 pages. You're going to use those as a library. So when you get stuck on something in Toby's lecture or my lecture or John Nersessian or Roger Ibbotson, yes, we have the man himself in this program, that's when you're going to go. You're like, okay, I watched that section by Roger or Toby. I watched it 3 times now. I got most of it, but let me go ahead and look in that section that's in the library and read more about it, because that's where the most in-depth coverage usually will live. We certainly couldn't lecture on 2,500 pages of text without having a video library that's like 300 hours long or something. So you're going to use the library in a specific way. That's to back up your knowledge, fill in knowledge gaps. You're going to key on the video lessons at the course level and then my video lessons once you get to the test prep. As I mentioned a couple of times before, you're going to have to take some tests. There's 11 of them right now, and you're going to watch some videos at the course level, then you'll take a test. You don't have to do those in order, but I would generally recommend it because there is a little bit of a logic to that. You can take those tests as many times as you need to. We just need some verification that you're doing the work and you're grasping this material. Now, the ultimate verification is your certification exam. You're going to have to pass that monster to get your certification. And we'll talk about that on the next slide. But anyway, once you pass the 11 tests, then we find out on a daily basis, okay, Jim passed his 11th test. He has completed this course. Send him his Yale certificate and let IWI know he has passed the education course and he is now studying for his certification exam. Send him information on how to get signed up for the certification exam. And at that point, and only at that point, when we know that you've passed our 11th test, the test prep will open up for you. And as I mentioned, there will be overlapping material between the course and the test prep, but with 500 topics, we won't have covered everything in the education course. And now we're really just trying to nail down what have they been testing heavily on in the last year? What have they been testing very lightly on? What's in the middle? And then what are some of the application variations of that? So you've got about 7 or 8 hours of me sorry, walking you through those 500 topics, and it's 1,000 test prep slides saying, guys, you really need to nail these next 3 slides down because I think something like this is coming your way. See these next 4 slides, they hardly ever test on it, even though it's right here on their topics list. And then the last bucket is, okay, this is an either or. They test regularly, but it's not high or low. It's somewhere in the middle. So you do need to know these next 3 slides, the applications of these, the examples, the practice questions in each of those 23 sections of slides and questions. So that's how you're going to make this more manageable for a 140 question exam that covers 500 topics and easily over 1,000 when you count subtopics. So we just need to get you really efficient in that regard. Now, I do want to give you a word of warning for this exam, CFP, CPWA, CFA, FRM, CAIA. Studying practice questions alone for these more difficult exams is not going to do it. I know it worked for us on almost all of our securities exams, right? Just good practice questions. A lot of those tests were not that challenging, and memory was the key. This is not the case at this level of certification exams. You're going to need to think in and around questions. They're going to pose questions in a difficult way to make sure you know it and understand it, not just memorize something. So in terms of these certifications, the days of just memorizing a bunch of practice questions, that's over. Just giving you a heads up, you may or may not be okay with that, but it is what it is, and I need you to know that. So anyway, I'll stop lecturing now and get back to, here are your resources for the test prep. Again, the vast majority of past candidates have said, you don't need anything else, just follow the plan. We've got a really robust, don't really like that word, a really awesome discussion board. And you'll see it time and time again where people took the exam, pass or fail, came back in and said, yeah, just follow this. Don't get hung up on this. Discussion board's great in this particular program. Okay, the exam itself, as somebody was asking about, 140 in terms of multiple choice questions, 125 are scored. So 15 are unscored beta items, as they call them. And you've got 5 hours to complete this exam. Now, once we go to August 1st, remember, they're going to change the exam, even though I don't expect it's going to be significant at all. The only significance of that is it's going to go down to 4 hours. They have not released how many questions it's going to be yet. I would imagine the level of difficulty will stay the same. And so they'll have to choose the right questions in the data bank rotation to make it comparable, but it will go down to a 4-hour exam. I don't think that's going to mean it's any easier. It's going to be just as hard. It's just going to be 1 less hour of pain, if you want to think about it that way. You can test in the Pearson testing centers, which I recommend, or you can do it at home through ProctorU, and you'll see guidance in our program on which one you would be better for you. There are higher pass rates when people test in person. I think there are some logical reasons for that. Great question on the calculator. If you send me an email, jim.dobbs@yale.edu, I'll send you not only the topic list and the formula sheet, I'll send you the candidate handbook as well, and it's got a list. There are about a dozen calculators that are allowed. I think it's on page 9 of that handbook, it may be 7, but I think it's 9. These are the 2 most popular I see in our course, in our program, the HP, the Hewlett-Packard 10B2 Plus, and the TI, Texas Instrument BA2 Plus, and personal or professional version of those is fine according to the handbook. You don't have to have either one of those, but those are the most popular. I use the HP 12C. It's kind of old school and it's got some cool sophisticated stuff, but it takes a while to learn this one. So I wouldn't do this one if you're new to calculators. I think one of these would be better. You probably should be familiar, otherwise you'll have to backtrack once you get into our program. Just go to YouTube, literally. I wouldn't have said this 5 years ago, but now there's some really good tutorials on these 2 calculators, and you can pull them up really easily. And I think just knowing the basics before you come in or right when you come into our program. Do you know the keystrokes? Do you know how to find present value, future value, interest or rate, number of periods, annuity due versus regular ordinary annuity? Can you solve for internal rate of return? Those kind of things. If you can do those half a dozen things, you'll be fine. All right, I'll let you stare at where's my help and see if we've got more questions as we kind of head down the stretch here.
Nothing at the moment. We did have a question about someone who wanted to set up a call with you, and I know you usually mention that at the end, but since we have a little lull.
Yeah, no, just shoot me an email. Either jim@dobbseducation.com, jim@dobbseducation.com, or jim.dobbs@yale.edu. And I'll be happy to schedule something with you so we can kind of kick around your situation. That it for now, Kelly?
That is it for now, yes.
Okay, so where's my help? Look, this, as I mentioned before, this is not priced or set up like a traditional 4 academic credit course, because it's not at Yale. But we do want you to have help. So you can't have interaction with your faculty. You're just not paying for that. And so we have to have some limits. That being said, any questions on, I forgot my login or my password or the URL or whatever, no limit on questions there. You have Kelly's team and my team available 8 to 5 Eastern, Monday through Friday, to handle those kind of questions. The discussion board and study groups are great. We don't give everybody your information, but if you want to put your information out on the discussion board, there's a special thread for that. And you can say, hey, this is Jim, and I'd love to study on Wednesday or Thursday night every week just to keep myself accountable and spend an hour online with other people, kind of going through at the same pace if I can identify you. And so we see those kind of things. But the discussion board is awesome. And I keep that up as an FAQ. You'll even see some threads, not many, but some discussions that are from like 2 or 3 years ago. And why I kept those is because the question asked was either really complex and good or really commonly asked. And I thought the faculty member answer to it was really right on the money and would help a lot of people. So you're going to use that as an FAQ when you're in any one of those 23 sections and you're like, up to this point, I've done great, but I'm at section 17 or section 12 or whatever. And wow, it's just kicking my rear. Get into that discussion board and see what other people have struggled with. It's probably similar to what you are struggling with, and see how myself or other instructors or even other classmates got them through those challenges. So that's a great resource. Canvas is the platform, the learning management system that we use. It's great. We've got it streamlined, if you will. So it's a really easy, user interface. It won't take you long at all to get used to, even though there's a lot of content in there. The organization's pretty simple, and it's 24/7 help. So like if your videos were working yesterday, but they're not today, well, it's probably because you're on a different platform. Your internet connection's different. Maybe the OS is different. There's probably a logical reason. Just reach out to Canvas and they'll help you through that. And then the bottom one, most important to me, because I'm involved in that one, is Ask the Expert. So if you ever have any trouble or questions or just wondering, is my study plan right? Is it timely? Am I in dreamland? You want to reach out to us right away. There's no limit on that. Eric or I will be there to help you with that, usually by phone, because in 10 minutes we can talk you through that and make sure that you have a good plan. I want you to have a good study plan and feel good about it. That way, the only thing you're really nervous about is the content, because there's a lot of content there. I don't need you nervous about anything else. I want you focused on that content. Now, speaking of the content, that's the only place we really have a limitation, and it's 12 questions. Yes, you literally have a 12-question limit in terms of reaching out through the discussion board or directly to, in this case, it's Eric, and he is outstanding. He's our practitioner instructor that works with you guys on those questions. He's a CIMA CFP attorney, MBA math whiz at University of Texas, all that great stuff. But you're only going to get him for 12 questions. I do encourage you to use all of your 12 questions if you need them. Now, how did we come up with 12? In the first couple of years, we beta tested a bunch of different things, and we came up with, I think 12 is going to be plenty. Let's see how it goes. And we've tracked it. Only about 2% of our CIMA candidates, 2%, ask all 12 of their questions. So yeah, I think we're safe in that zone. But that being said, if you're for whatever reason, your learning style preference, it's just what your expectation is. If you're like, no, there's 23 sections, I may have questions in all 23 sections, and I want to get help, then sadly, this will not be the right program for you. So I want to be very upfront about that. But for the rest of the 98%, seems to be just fine. Okay, great faculty. I'll let you read through our bios and what have you on the website and all that. And there are others. Eric is great. Gall Zauberman is in this program as well. Todd Court, an expert in ESG. So we've got a lot of great faculty. I've worked with Toby for coming up on 20 years now, not just at Yale, but another university and other programs we've done together. I did put in a little link here. I saw recently a fireside chat with Toby. And so it's kind of cool. It's just him in his office and he's being interviewed. He talks mostly about being director of the Masters of Asset Management. So like this is the professional certification. That's the heavy lifting 4-degree program. So he talks a little bit about that. But I think it's just a nice insight to Toby and his personality, what makes him tick. So if you're interested and have 6 minutes, you could click on that and check him out. Okay, I won't talk about all the feedback other than to say we take this very seriously. There are about 25 or 30 metrics that we measure in a survey after you not only complete our course, but take and pass or fail the certification exam. All that to say, Kelly's team and my team, we work these two programs, CIMA, CPWA, really, really proactively. Try to make them the best that they can be, but they are not perfect. We are not perfect. We're all humans, but we're going to give it everything we've got. That being said, even though we know where the sweet spot is for probably between 75 and 80% of you in terms of your learning styles and preferences, you might fall outside of that norm. So even though we know this works, the pass rates are strong, student feedback scores you can see are really strong as well. Everybody's got a different learning style and preference. So there's always a chance that it just won't tie up, with what you were expecting coming in the door. There is a no money back guarantee. That seems like an oxymoron, doesn't it? There's no money back. So you need to feel really certain about this coming in the door, because once you commit, you have committed. That being said, having done this for thousands of people, I think we kind of know what we're doing, and we do ask you to trust us a little bit in that regard. Now, one way I can get around the learning styles and preferences, that's why we have a handful of different professors and faculty on this program, because not as great as Toby is, there might be one, I don't know, 1 out of 100. For me, it'd be more than that, but for him, it might be 1 out of 100 or 2 out of 100 that wouldn't like his style. So I want to make sure we've got different styles covering different topics just to meet those different preferences. Okay, so all of this we've been just trying to help you figure out, is CIMA certification right for you? And is the Yale program and setup right for you? How important is flexibility? The leverage or learning from all these different kind of forms of learning. As I mentioned before, though, you'll want to follow our lead, especially once you get to the test prep. You'll really want to follow our blueprint for success, and doing anything other or taking shortcuts is not advisable. Now, you may lean towards videos or practice questions or readings. That's becoming lesser and lesser these days, but you may lean towards any one of those, and that's fine. Spend more time in those, but you're going to need to use all of our resources. It is comprehensive. I have no doubt we cover more and more depth than any other program ever has. That's probably why we've got a nice pass rate. But you still have to have the motivation and the discipline. Look, based on the month you come in, I'm going to send you weekly kind of updates and just best practices tips, given where you came in over your first 4 to 5 months every week, just to kind of stay on top of your mind and give you some study tips as you go. We're even going to go old school and send you emails at least once a month, your whole 12 months if you're with us for 12 months. But you still got to have the discipline to create your own schedule, even if you're using our prototype schedules, and get it done. So if you think that doesn't apply to you and you just wouldn't be able to hold yourself accountable, then this might not be the program for you. Look, we want you all to come to our program, but only if it's a good fit, right? The certification needs to be a good fit for you in our program. But look, if you're up for a challenge, and this will be a challenge even for the 20-year veteran, if you're up for a challenge, you want to join us at Yale, we would love to have you. The way you get started is you just go to IWI's website. You can find the link on our website too. But you're going to apply for candidacy there. Remember, it takes them about a week, and then it takes us about a week once we get your name as approved to get you up and running. And then here again is Kelly's information, contact information, and my information. You just shoot me an email. Be happy to have a private talk with you. So that's it from me, Kelly, but let's see if there's questions, because I think we have time.
Yeah, nothing at the moment, but as Jim mentioned, we do have some time here, so we're happy to hang out for a bit and answer any questions you
Absolutely.
have.
So while y'all are thinking about final questions, let me kind of give you some do's and don'ts. I'll start with the don'ts. You don't want to come in with your own agenda in terms of, this is the way I've always studied, this is the way I have to do it. You at least want to be open to our suggestions. Again, we haven't done this for 30 people or 300. It's over 3,000 people. And so we have a pretty good idea of what works and what does not work. I even post in the announcement section, again, based on when you came in, don't do this, don't do that. I've seen it before. It's ugly. It's not going to end well. So don't do this, don't do this. Do this, be an active learner. This is one of those curriculums where you really need to get into the material if you're like me, and I would say 85 to 90% of other learners. Material that's this deep and complicated, again, not to the level of CFA, but much, much more complex than a typical $200 certification program that you just buy off the internet and hardly have to study for. You're going to need 10 minutes, give or take, just to engage in the content if you've been serving clients or doing other stuff and you're getting back in. To really get into this meat and material and be in the moment, it's going to take you 10 minutes. So you need to be studying at 30 minutes to an hour at least at a time. And you really need to be focused and active learning, not highlighting. That's better than nothing. But if you've printed out some slides or readings or whatever, you're taking notes of the videos, you need to be writing things down. Typing's okay, writing's better. All the studies show that, because you're engaging other parts of your brain. And if you do that, you're actually synthesizing as you see it, hear it, translate it through your brain into your hand and start writing out. So active learning is really, really important in this program. And if you'll start with that, you'll get through much faster. And I got a feeling you're going to have a much better shot at that test on your first attempt. Okay, I'll stop rambling. Questions?
Yep, we did just have a question come in. This person is a CFP and also an investment advisor, and is asking, what type of professional would you say would benefit most from this certification?
Yeah, anybody, again, kind of from the beginning, anybody who is servicing or selling investment products or services. Now, that's a big net that I just threw out there. But that would really not be an institutional portfolio manager or securities analyst. If you need to crunch the data on a daily basis to determine whether something goes in or comes out of the portfolio, this will not get you there. We're not going to go that far in equity analysis, for example, or fixed income analysis. It's in there, it's in the curriculum. It's just not tested heavily, so we're not going to cover it that heavily. So if you're a financial planner and an investment advisor working for an RIA, for example, and you have discretion over the portfolios like I did, then, okay, well, CIMA's probably right, but still could be CFA. Here's the difference. Even though I had discretion for over 20 years on my client accounts, I used strategic, usually portfolio management, asset allocation, and I had my allocations, and I used managers at ETFs, separate accounts, mutual funds, alts, etc., to fill in the allocations that I wanted. And then I rebalanced, and I made sure we had the best active managers that I could find in those slots if we weren't going passive or indexed or enhanced indexed. Okay, CIMA is perfect for that because we're going to go into all of that. But if you're in that same situation, but you're actually picking individual securities, to go into the portfolio and to be sold, then no, that's definitely a CFA task. And you would want to look at something more like CFA. So I'm not sure if that helped or not, but I hope it did. And feel free to reach out to me. We can have a call or email chat if you want to go further on that.
Okay, I'm not seeing any questions at the moment, but again, we still have a couple minutes here, so feel free to fire in anything you're wondering about.
Yeah, absolutely. And while we're waiting, that maybe this one last time, because I see we only got a few minutes left. Yeah, I would say this is an obvious one, but look, with any kind of program like this, you're going to get out of it what you put into it. Again, we've heard that since we were like 7 years old or something, but it's really true here. There is so much material in this program. Once you get to test prep, you're going to be like, okay, maybe I'll come back. I've downloaded everything. I'll come back and look at it later, but I just need to get through this test. But you really are going to get what you put into it. So if you're looking to fast track this and knock this all out in 50 hours or something, it's possible if you're sharp enough and you have good test taking skills and you grasp enough of this from a comprehensive standpoint. But you won't get as much, I would argue, you won't get as much out of it as somebody who spends 200 hours and it really digs into the weeds, really, really tries to apply this to what they're doing in practice. So just keep that as a nice goal, an ideal as you come into a program like this. Again, you don't know when the next time you're going to have this opportunity come up, given your busy life, your busy practice. So yeah, take advantage of this and just soak it all up. That would be my recommendation.
Okay, so still not seeing anything come in, so I think we'll go ahead and wrap this up then. So yeah, so thanks so much, Jim. Really great information today, and thanks to everyone who submitted questions. Really appreciate all the thoughtful questions. So as Jim has mentioned, for more information, you can visit our website or reach out to either of us directly with any additional questions. We will be sharing this recording and the slides in the coming days, so our contact information will be there as well. And as Jim mentioned, of course, we would love to see you in our program, but it's really important to just find the program and path that's the best fit for you. So thanks again for joining us, everyone. And this concludes the webinar. Have a great day.